Today I am reading from the 10th book in the Left Behind series, and the name of this book is The Remnant on the Brink of Armageddon, and we're reading chapter 8 today. Thank you, Lord, Chang said, still as his fingers danced on the keyboard. In seconds, he had opened the transcripts of 4 phone conversations on a line so secure that Carpathia himself had once said even he didn't have access to it. But David Hasid cracked it. Nikki accessed that. Chang also had copies of emails that showed up on neither the Palace nor the Potomac mainframe and were supposedly guaranteed to disappear from every record after they had been read. Hasid's master disk probably had the only copies in existence, including the correspondence. Though he was curious, Chang knew it was irrelevant how someone at Stefanak's level had personal access to the director of security and intelligence. The way they interacted evidenced some history. But if the box in the corner had not begun flashing again, Chang would not have wasted the time tracking it down until the crisis was over. He quickly clicked on the box to find 100% primary match, no decode necessary. He opened the manifest and sped read. Straight correlation from list A to list B. Suhail Akbar and Nelson Stefanak registered at Madrid Military School, overlapping 10 years. From the years listed, Chang calculated they had been there together as teenagers more than 25 years before. That would get a phone call returned. Chang was flying now. His eyes darted over the copy, looking for how the ruse fell apart. Stefanak had asked whether Howie Johnson was a fair man. Akbar responded that the name didn't ring a bell. Stefanak told him senior commander under Conrad. I'll look him up. Akbar found him and reported, stellar record, but our paths have not crossed. Unusual for someone at that level, but it happens. Don't want to be a pest, Stefanak had followed. But does Conrad vouch for him? Want to be sure before exposing him to prisoner. What prisoner? And who's Conrad? The Judahite George Sebastian. Still nothing out of him? We'll break him or kill him. Break him. I know you can. You're not Conrad's immediate superior. No. Do I need to look him up too? You'd better. He's supposed to be your top guy, deputy commander, officer on the floor. Send documentation. Later, Akbar told Stefanak, you're being duped. Johnson and Conrad are in the system. Everything adds up, except they don't exist. Permission to reverse sting them. With my best wishes. Bring them in, dead or alive, and I'll move you to the palace. As the phone calls and emails progressed, the women's identities proved phony too. The one from Montreal was in my office. By early afternoon, Akbar had decided if Sebastian is worth all this, they're tied in tight with the underground. Announce a raid and see if they reveal location. Chang called Mac. The raid's phony. If you warn the believers, you could give them away. Call Chloe or Hannah. I'm occupied. Your location is a trap too, Mac. All right, listen, Chang. You saved our lives, but whatever you do, find Sebastian. I'll get him out or die trying. Chloe answered her phone. It was Chang. Raid was a setup, so the GC, you'd lead the GC to the underground. Abort. Hannah, You were right. What? Hannah was right, Chang. She suspected we were being followed. I didn't notice a thing and thought she was paranoid. I told you. Ditch them and lead them nowhere, Chang said. From what I can tell, the GC has no clue where the co op is or that it's the meeting place. I gotta go. Mac is calling. Go, Mac. Question: if this is a trap, why wouldn't peacekeepers have come back with Chloe and taken me then? I don't follow. Mac told him of her encounter with the half dozen. You got me. I'm still reading them back and forth between Akbar and Stepanov. Possibly not everybody knows. That could be. It's to your advantage. Confirm if you can. Will do. Mac had moved east far enough to see the lean to if there was one. He saw nothing. Not even the GC Hannah or Chloe had seen. That meant the meeting place for the ground troops was at least a little farther on. If Chang was right, Sebastian wouldn't be within miles of there. Brilliant military mind, Mac. Left yourself alone in the wilderness, way outnumbered. Mac considered his options and few advantages. He was hard to see. He knew enough not to be lured to where Sebastian was purported to be. He had the 50. He was a long walk or medium jog to the car, but the car had to already be under surveillance. It would be surrounded, so if he was stupid enough to try to get in it, he would be easily apprehended. Lord, he said quietly, I'm going to thank you for keeping me motivated to stay in shape, and I'm going to ask you for one more stamina than I've got. All I'm trying to do is get your man and my two partners out of here alive. Now I'm thanking you as if you've already done it, because I'm going to be busy here a while. And if you've chosen not to, I figure you know best, and I'll be seeing you real soon. Mac made his way back toward the shack and stopped about 100 yards above it. He removed his big outer jacket, kept only 350 caliber shells and two clips from for the Uzi, then wound the Uzi strap twice so the weapon was snug to his body. He couldn't actually run carrying the 50, but he loped the best he could, staying high on the ridge and following the terrain, often as far as 200 yards above the road. The air was cool on his arms and neck and face at first, but soon his body heat made him sweat. This, he knew, was only the beginning. Mac's muscles ached and knotted, and all but cried out, but he would not stop. He didn't even slow. He just kept moving farther and farther west, trying to gauge the distance to where he had left the car. After traversing a rugged stretch with loose rocks that nearly made him fall several times, he finally decided to look for the vehicle. Max stretched out on the steep slant, facing down toward the road. He set the bipod, his arms shaking from effort and fatigue, popped open the telescopic sight, loosened the connection so he could scan with it rather than trying to move the heavy gun and search the road. It seemed to take forever for his eye to adjust in the darkness. The gravel road was a ribbon of only slightly lighter gray against the blackness of the woods. But he knew what he was looking at the far right of his field of vision, far enough that he knew he would have to move the weapon nearly 100 feet. He spotted something that picked up a hint of starlight. Only the white car would do that. Mac gulped another minute's worth of cool air, then forced himself up and over to where he could line the 50 up with the car. He was nothing if not patient. While he tightened the sight and made several seat of the pants calculations, he swore he saw movement on the north side of the road. If he was right, GC waited for him down there, and almost certainly on the other side of the road, too. He remembered from experience to tear cloth from his undershirt and stuff both ear canals. He set an extra round of ammunition next to the weapon, then dug himself footholds. It was a huge benefit to be pointing downhill because the recoil could shove him up and back only so far. He had to remember to keep his knees bent. Mac's plan was to fire 2 rounds into the car in as rapid a succession as possible. knowing that he would have to force himself to follow through because no one who had shot this rascal once, and that included him, ever wanted to shoot it again, let alone right away. He stretched out and settled in, leaving his finger off the trigger until he had drawn the butt of the rifle to his shoulder. He maneuvered it until it lay in a soft spot and not on a bone, aware that the thing would still wreak havoc with his whole body. Mac ran through the checklist: steady, relaxed, pull firm to the shoulder, trigger finger relaxed, ears protected, feet in holds, elbows slightly bent, knees flexed and ready to give, barely visible, crosshairs dead on the roof of the car, a tick left, allowing for wind. Distance just under 200 yards. No matter what the thing does to me, reload and fire again, not worrying about accuracy the second time. It warned Mac as he silently counted himself down from 3 that he definitely saw movement through the lens. Unless someone was so spectacularly unfortunate as to step into his line of fire, no one would be hit, certainly not by the first round. By the second, even if he got it off inside a few beats, he expected the GC to be halfway back to the shack already. When he got to 1, Mac aborted. Better idea. Go for broke. Aim a little left. Hope to hit the gas tank. Even if he missed, these guys had to think they were facing a tank, or at least a bazooka. If he got lucky, they'd think they were facing eternity. He reset just a smidge. Checklist 3210. Oh, mama. Mac thought he had been prepared. It was as if he had nothing in his ears. The sound was so massive it seemed to weigh on him. The woods had exploded, and yes, the erupting of that gas tank and the rebounding of that car on the gravel would have made a sound whether or not people had been there to hear it. The perverse nightmare of the sheer volume of it lay atop him longer than the orange ball rode his eyes. The violence drove him back and onto his left side. As Max struggled to gather his senses, he rolled back to his belly and slid back down into the same position. Fingers fluttering, he wrestled the extra round into the chamber, made sure the thing was generally facing away from him again, and forced himself against every instinct to pull the trigger again. He should have run through the checklist again. One foot had not been secure. He was neither tight nor firm. The butt had been at least a half inch from his shoulder. The recoil sent it back seemingly at the speed of light and drove a ridge into the top of his shoulder. He was sure would be there for weeks. The sound was lessened only by the damage the first shot had done to his eardrums. His ears buzzed and rang, and he dumbly lifted his head to see trees falling, 2 on this side of the road and 1 on the other. His aim had been 10 feet to the left of the now flattened and burning car, which prettily eliminated the carnage of machine and fauna, all wrought by 2 fairly simple pulls on a metal lever. Mac wished only that he could have heard what had to be the frightened cries of the young peacekeepers on the dead run. He awkwardly forced himself up on all fours like a spindly newborn colt and fought to keep from pitching down the hill. When he was finally standing, arms outstretched for balance, and to stop the woods from spinning, he waited and waited. When his balance mechanism finally made the necessary adjustments, Mac caught his breath, shook his head, stretched each limb, even the one with the violated shoulder, and began to jog. His intention was to jog what had taken him more than a half hour to drive. He would find his way back to where he and Chloe and Hannah had engaged in their sortie soiree that left afternoon that now seemed so long ago. There, Mac would find the hidden Jeep, hotwire it, and set off on what he truly hoped was his last caper of the day. Surely by the time he got there, he would have heard from Chang where he might find George Sebastian. And after all this, may God have mercy, or not, on anyone who dared stand between them and freedom. And that is the end of chapter 8. And next, we'll be reading chapter 9. Thank you for joining me and have a wonderful day.